Do a certain type of landscaping, right?
Yes, I try to make things look natural, Tex-Mex, what it would look like, say, if you're in South Texas. Years ago, I got a chance to do the horses at the Houston Rodeo for the 92 Republican Convention. And Lewis Pierce Sr., Jr., excuse me, of Waukesha Parish gave me my first big break. We got to do that. I met the Bushes, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Well, so one of the things that I noticed when we went to laying our project out in the beginning was I had a lot of ideas about how I wanted it to look, and you basically told me, get out of my way and let me be the artist, and you be the contractor, and you really helped me design it and put it into place.
Yeah, I remember that distinctly because you had this sidewalk that your grandmother was going to come and walk there and do this, and first thing I said, that won't work. And you, the builder, said, well, why not? And I said, well, look where your valleys are, and we're going to have to take the water down this direction. Then we'll put a 12-inch pipe underneath the sidewalk and redirect the water. And you thought I was a little bit out there, but as we progressed, it's the only way it would have worked. No matter what you put in, that's where the water and the weather are your two biggest factors.
Is that kind of where you start when you're laying out a new home?
Well, basically, we try to create the area, and we take paint and mark it, and we'll put where the creek beds ought to be. And then we kind of paint them in there with the paint, and then we strip everything. We're bringing in fresh dirt. So we get it, kind of lay it out, and then I got all this rock I spread out like dominoes, and then I kind of mark. And I'll say these 7 are my key places, or I should say 8. And then we go down from there and kind of sort the rock out. Many ranches I've been to and all, I look at it and I kind of get a pre-notion in my head what it's going to be. Number one, I hate looking at blue lines. So I do a watercolor, I hand draw it, and it's got everything that's in there that you would want. And then I try to come up with an idea. Now, that drawing is not going to be what you end up with, because as we start setting it, and we don't know what the rock is, because I don't buy rock off a yard. Every load I've had for 40 years has come off of Lake Brownwood by the Welch family, who I've done business with forever.
So you're going to bring in fresh dirt. You're going to change the landscaping. You're going to change the elevation. So it's not just like it was on the piece of paper. In your mind, you've got these different dimensions, the different elevations of height and depth, etc. And then you start laying these big rocks out. And you may lay one kind of where it's like it's a part of a cliff overhanging, a water area or bluff walls or something like that. Once you kind of get those main key rocks laid out, what are you doing next?
Well, we kind of put the rough dirts in. If there's going to be a mesa somewhere, I have to come up with it, say 5 foot of dirt. Then you pick the rocks that you want. You kind of cantilever places, and then you back up. If you want to have, say, flowers in the front, then we'd back up 12 inches, and then the next layer of rock goes there. And you just work your way up. And I have an idea of this. Okay, these yucca rostradas we use, they grow in the Chisos Mountains across from Big Bend. We have a guy in the valley that grows them like rice. He floods his fields twice a year off the Rio Grande. And so instead of being skinny like you see them up there when you're in Big Bend, they get more robust and have a bigger dimension to the base. And then I trim them, which is my signature, because I like things to look real crisp and pristine. We'll trim it, and it looks like a basket weave on your belt whenever it dries up. We do that with palm trees, where it looks like a coconut at the top, and you'll take it where it's a smooth trunk all the way up. These are all things that I do because kind of like going on a date. You want to dust your hat off, and you want to brush your teeth and all the good things. So you got to make your plants look the same way.
So those you've got those key large rocks. You've got key large plants as well.
Right. We use a lot of Texas mountain laurels, which I get from Lucio's in the family, and there involves me going up there to look at them. I pick what I want. I don't buy out, just call somebody and buy it. I have a guy named Marcus with Newton's down in Houston that gets me anything coming in from the West Coast. I can call him with a list, and he'll find it and make sure it's here. And these relationships have helped me be what I do. I've got people in South Texas that I've delivered, some monster palm trees. And we've worked all these distant places, so you got to have somebody trucks it. You got to have all these things lined up to make it work.
Man, those enormous palm trees that they're growing down there at on that ranch, and then they're going in and hand digging all of that up.
Everything's by hand.
Man, so like we're used to just, I think in this world we think, oh, these are grown real quick, popped up out of the ground. Why are they so expensive? It's like, no, that may be a 15-year-old plant that 6 guys are spending their lives with it, watering it, keeping it fertilized, keeping it going good. Like you said, flooding the pastures, and then out there with shovels in the South Texas dirt, hand digging these pieces of plants. I mean, these plants up, and they're not small plants. These are large palm trees and big multi-headed daggers and things that really are really impressive once they get in the front of your house.
Yeah, I'm I like big stuff. The bigger the plants you got, you don't have time to wait and grow. It's just not going to look the same when you use all these tiny plants and just say, well, I'm saving money. Well, you get what you spend your money on.
Well, that was one of the things that you showed me was we were going to buy these larger, mature plants. But we also planted things like the mountain laurels and the vitex trees that you told me, hey, when your kids are graduating high school, they'll walk under this tree. So my landscaping looked amazing the day that you left, but there were slow growers that, let's say that we did live here 30, 40, 50 years, those plants were going to grow with our lifetime, and it was going to just change and improve all the time.
All this stuff will grow. I like things to look like kind of like a hacienda would look. Architecturally, you'd have a big house with tile roofs and stucco and rock, and then the working class lived in wooden buildings with corbel cuts on it and all, and they had tin roofs on it because that was the class of people they were. Well, I try to make that look in my jobs that way.
Yeah, and you really do. You bring that feeling up. I mean, I think that's why we appreciate and spend so much time outside around our patios and in our landscaping and everything. Like sometimes it's just me and her just walking through stuff and looking at it, and every different season comes with something different. The vitexes bloom, the mountain laurels bloom real pretty. But then there's other stuff that, she has that just comes out at night. So we'll go out there at midnight and watch these real pretty flowers bloom, or she'll put a time lapse on it, and you'll see everything. You'll see bats come up to them, everything's out there. That's just natural. When we call you for a project like that, that's part of it. It takes quite a while to plan it out, quite a while to do it. I mean, not too long, but there's a lot that goes into it.
Right.
We've got to kind of discuss what we're looking for, what we want. We've got to say, okay, well, if this is what you want, this is what it's going to take us to do. You've got to figure out how many guys that you're going to need on the project, how long it's going to take them to do, so because that's expenses that you've got to account for, whether whether you're going to need large equipment. You might get those big, huge key pieces set, but none of the rocks are light, and a lot of those y'all can't get equipment in. You've got to hand move around with different bars and different ways of gaining leverage that you've learned over the years. And then the materials. When you give a quote, there's lots of material, a lot of big rock, small rock, the pea gravel or the river rock that goes into it, all the way down to the small colored plants and the mulch. And it really is an art. So of course, when we're talking to homeowners, we need to figure out a budget and a timeline. But we also need to be very open with them that, look, this could change. Like, we'll take you to a certain point in your budget, we'll be budget conscious, but let's figure out what different checkpoints are along the way to see how we're going and different contingencies that we may need in there.
Right. And it's hard to give them a hard line because, as you know, materials, availability, trucking, all those things enter into it. Labor cost and availability, things just change. I don't the supply and demand, especially after this drought and the freezes we've had. We are just now in October getting color coming into this part of Texas. And the color is what it's all about. You have to have, when you're going in and out of a project, you have bigger rocks. you got to look good coming, and you got to look when they go to leave. It's got to look just as good. So you have to have 180 on your design part, and that's how I design things. You know, I'm not going to get in there and make them mad at me because I only got half of it done. So I'd rather not have a customer than have an unhappy customer.
It really has added something to our house that it wasn't something we thought about in the beginning. It wasn't something that we budgeted in. But if we had it to do over, it would be one of the main things that we started with. And what you've designed is the water always goes the right direction. It goes out the right way of the house. It flows under the sidewalk with the riverbeds. It all looks natural, but it lives really well. It makes life just easier. It's done. The irrigation's where the irrigation's supposed to be. The grass is where the grass is supposed to be. You know, y'all have got everything bordered with bull rock. Just things that make it easy to keep, easy to live, that I never understood what y'all were doing or how y'all were doing it. Y'all came and put all the color in at the end, really made everything pop, and then put a black mulch in is what we chose for ours, or you chose for ours. And man, when this landscaping is put together, it really makes the house, and it makes every evening just sitting out on the patio something extra.
Well, that's my whole goal, was to make it where you live in it. You know, you don't sit in the house and just look at it when you get home from work. You can walk past it and come in. And I know you and Carly, we've gotten to be real good friends over the years, but it's like, this is your home,
yeah.
You know, and I wanted to be a piece of it. And it's just the whole relationship. To me, that's my life, is doing what I do and creating stuff. You know, I appreciate the fact that you and Carly had enough to trust in me and let me do it this house.